Shabbat Shalom. I recently had a conversation with a member of our congregation who was asking me about what does it mean to pray for someone who's ill, and that question, why or when bad things happen to good people. And I said, that's a very long conversation. It's a big topic, and theology, philosophy, mysticism, very complex, but there's one part that is simple and short. So as we prayed this morning at the beginning of the service, there's one psalm that we recite throughout this whole period leading up to our high holidays and the new year. Psalm 27, the Lord is my life and my help. Complex psalm, but really a psalm that's asking for protection and affirming divine protection over us. So we say, the Lord is my light and my help. Whom shall I fear? The Lord is a stronghold of my life. Whom shall I dread? When evil men assail me to devour my flesh, it is they, my foes and my enemies, who stumble and fall. So it seems like a triumphant sort of psalm, but really there's not that much assuredness of triumph in it. And if anything, really what the psalm is about is inner peace and the fearlessness that every one of us really is looking for. Whom shall I fear? Whom shall I dread? He says, should an army besiege me, my heart would have no fear. Should war beset me, I would be confident. And so what does it mean to feel that inner peace and fearlessness? The psalmist says in this verse that we sing here, Achad sha'alti, one thing I ask of the Lord, only that do I seek, to live in the house of the Lord all the days of my life, to gaze upon the beauty of the Lord, to frequent his sanctuary. And so for the psalmist, what he described as living in the house of the Lord is that feeling of being protected. And even though he's at war, apparently, he feels peaceful enough to actually see the beauty around him. And truly much of the psalm is about that struggle of the psalmist and of so many human beings to find peace, to find that state of mind where we're untouched by all the troubles. And he says, when God will shelter me in his pavilion on an evil day, grant the protection of his tent, raise me high upon a rock. O Lord, I seek your face, do not hide your face from me. Do not thrust aside your servant, do not forsake me, do not abandon me. And he's saying what we're seeking for, maybe more than anything, is that feeling of spiritual protection that gives us peace of mind, of soul, and bodily peace, so that he can then go to all those battles of life feeling powerful and feeling connected. And he knows that if he feels disconnected, if he doesn't feel like he's got shelter above him, then all of his troubles will overwhelm him and it'll be terrifying. But if he is true in himself, he can even go to war and be in peace. And I think we all intuitively understand the peace of this from our own lives, that when our minds and hearts are at peace, then we can weather even the greatest storms. And in the end, the psalmist he's not assured that God will take away all of his suffering and troubles. And he states, though my father, my mother leave me, the Lord will take me in, show me your way and lead me on a level path. And he's saying, I cannot control what happens in my life. I cannot control if my father, my mother, God forbid, leave me, if I'm abandoned by other human beings, if illness and tragedy and even war come my way. I cannot control my enemies and all of their plots. But if I'm on that level path, and as he says earlier, if I'm high up on that rock, I'll meet all the troubles that life sends my way, even if all those terrible things happen. In the end, what the psalmist is describing here is perhaps faith itself. What is faith? Faith is not knowing what's going to come your way, or know even what is in the divine plans, or know how the divine works in the world, or at certain moments when we ask, well, what is actually the nature of this universal consciousness here, and if, and how, and when, and why? But nonetheless, facing all the tragedies and illnesses and injustices and the brokenness of the world without fear and even with peace. And that faith itself is the protection. The faith is what gives us that feeling of being in the shelter, of feeling God's face, as he says, of finding strength. And it's why the psalm ends, look to the Lord, be strong and of good courage, or look to the Lord. What the psalmist is saying is that with that faith, we can find the strength and the courage, and we can meet great challenges and tribulations. We can face all that invariably comes the way of every one of us with level-headedness, with perspective and peace, and even able to gaze at the beauty of the world of it happens. And there are definitely times when it's challenging to find such a faith. We look at our world and our lives, we see everything happening. It's something that we build slowly, slowly within ourselves. And part of going up to the high holy days is rebuilding that place of faith. And every time we say this psalm, and every time we hear the shofar, there's a tradition to sound the shofar minyan every morning. Every time we hear the shofar, it builds a little bit more of that feeling of faith. It helps protect us from dread, from fear, and go through our lives until we stand on the high holidays, and then we feel full again. And then the sukkah, according to tradition, and the Zohar is called the tzela de mehemnuta, the shelter of faith. We've built our shelter of faith. So Jeremy, if there is one thing I was reflecting on that I wish for you and all the other students who go through this religious school, is to find a little of that faith here, a little of that faith as you go through life, the faith of King David in this psalm, the faith of 3,500 years of Jews who never gave up no matter what came their way, and the faith that will help you through all the parts of life. So as we enter this period leading into the high holidays, may we all be filled up with the reservoirs of faith and find the peace and inner quiet that we are all looking for. Shabbat Shalom.